Lena Morales had been invisible for as long as she could remember. She moved through the world quietly, her footsteps light, her presence unnoticed, her hands always busy with the tools of her trade, a mop, a spray bottle, a rag. At 24, she was already tired in a way most people did not understand. She was tired of carrying the weight of her mother's medical bills, of watching her younger brother drift further from school and closer to street corners, of counting every dollar and every hour in a city that swallowed dreams whole. Tonight, she worked late in a place that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Harrington Tower was a steel and glass marvel rising above the skyline, its sharp angles reflecting the glow of the city. Lena was not supposed to be there after midnight, but a schedule change had her scrubbing floors long after the last employee left. At least, she thought they had all left. She hummed softly to herself, kneeling near the massive glass desk on the top floor. The office smelled of polished wood and expensive cologne, the kind you caught in the air but never saw the person wearing. Her hands worked methodically, wiping away fingerprints from the surface when a sudden sound froze her in place. She heard the low murmur of a voice, deep and steady, coming from the adjoining room. Heart pounding, Lena turned her head just enough to catch the shadow moving behind the frosted glass. Alex Harrington. She knew his name like the city knew his name, the billionaire CEO who turned a crumbling company into a global powerhouse before 35, a man whose face graced magazines and financial news, but whose eyes were always cool, sharp, untouchable. She had never seen him up close before, only heard stories from the office staff, or caught glimpses in the building lobby when he swept past in his tailored suits, surrounded by people who always seemed to be trying to catch up. But tonight, something was wrong. His voice carried through the glass, tight with frustration, as he spoke into the phone. "No, I do not care what the board says. The numbers are off. The whole pitch is off. We launch in 2 weeks, and we are about to walk into a disaster." There was a pause, the scrape of a chair against the floor. Lena stayed frozen on the carpet, unsure whether to stand, to hide, or to finish her job and slip out unnoticed. Then the door opened. Alex stepped out, tall and sharp in black slacks and a white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, the tension in his shoulders unmistakable. He moved like a man who carried the weight of too much, who had no room for error, no patience for delay. His eyes flicked to Lena, and for the first time their gazes met. She expected him to be angry, to bark at her to leave, to demand why she was still there, but he just stood for a moment, eyes slightly narrowed, as if trying to place her. Then he said quietly, "You're the cleaner, right?" Lena nodded quickly, rising to her feet, clutching her rag in both hands. "Yes, sir. I am almost done." Alex ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. "You are here late." She hesitated, then said softly, "So are you." He gave a short laugh, the sound surprising both of them. Then his expression shifted, and he looked back toward his office, frowning. What Lena did next surprised even herself. She spoke, uninvited. "I am sorry, sir, but I overheard a little about the numbers." Alex turned back, one brow raised, clearly not used to anyone speaking up. "The pitch deck. I saw it earlier when I was dusting. I could not help noticing." She trailed off, cheeks burning, heart pounding, realizing how insane she sounded. She was a janitor, standing in front of one of the most powerful men in the city, offering commentary on a billion-dollar project. But instead of dismissing her, Alex crossed his arms and gave a slow nod. "All right," he said quietly. "Let us hear it." And in that moment, something shifted. Lena had never imagined herself standing in front of a billionaire, giving unsolicited advice, but something about the moment crackled in the air, as if fate had slipped a thin thread between their lives. Alex Harrington was still watching her, his arms crossed over his chest, waiting. Lena's throat tightened. She could walk away, apologize, pretend nothing happened. But something inside her, Something buried under years of quiet survival pushed her to speak. She cleared her throat softly. "I saw the charts, sir. The customer segmentation looks too broad. You are trying to target 3 different groups with one campaign, but the messaging overlaps." Alex raised an eyebrow. "You read the deck?" Lena shifted uncomfortably. "Only what I saw while dusting. I studied marketing for 2 years before—" She hesitated, swallowing hard. "Before life happened." Alex's eyes sharpened slightly, and Lena braced for the moment he would dismiss her, maybe even have her reported for overstepping. But instead, he walked back into the office, gesturing for her to follow. "Show me." Lena hesitated at the threshold. "Sir, I really should finish my shift." He turned, his gaze cool but not unkind. "Consider this a temporary promotion. 1 hour, that is all." Against every voice in her head screaming to be cautious, Lena stepped into the room. The walls were lined with sleek shelves, glass panels, and screens displaying financial data. On the desk lay the deck she had glimpsed earlier, a mix of numbers, charts, and projections. She approached slowly, pointing at one particular slide. "Here. You are positioning the app for luxury buyers, small business owners, and general consumers all at once. They need different messages, different angles." Alex watched her carefully. "You got all that in a glance?" Lena flushed. "I used to be good at this. Before my mother got sick, before my brother needed help, before I had to trade textbooks for cleaning shifts." She straightened, forcing herself to meet his eyes. "I know I should not say anything, but I thought maybe it mattered." For a long moment, Alex said nothing. Then he let out a breath, a faint smile ghosting his lips. "Sit down." Lena blinked. "Excuse me?" "Sit." He pulled out the chair beside his. "I want you to walk me through what you see." That night became the strangest of Lena's life. She sat at the edge of a chair, nervously tracing her fingers along the wood, pointing out small details as Alex leaned in, listening intently. He asked sharp questions, the kind that could cut if you were not careful, but she answered honestly, carefully, watching his expression shift from the cool detachment to something like curiosity. When the clock struck 2, Alex leaned back, running a hand through his hair. "You just saved me from walking into a boardroom massacre." Lena's heart thudded hard in her chest. "I was just trying to help." He studied her. "You did more than help." When Lena finally left the building, the city felt different under her feet. She returned to her tiny apartment, her mind still spinning. She thought it was over, just one strange night. But the next day, everything changed. The call came mid-afternoon. "Lena, this is Alex Harrington." Her knees nearly gave out. He wanted her to come back that evening just to look at a few more things, he said. She should have said no. She was just the cleaning lady. But something inside her whispered yes. Lena's life had never been easy. She had grown up in a cramped apartment in Queens, the eldest daughter of immigrant parents who worked themselves to the bone for every scrap they had. Her father passed away when she was 16, and from that moment, Lena learned the art of sacrifice. She gave up her art classes to take on shifts at the corner store. She skipped senior trips to cover bills. She was accepted to a good college on partial scholarship, but when her mother's health began to decline, Lena knew what she had to do. She left school, picked up 3 jobs, and never looked back. She had long since stopped dreaming. Alex, on the other hand, came from a world of sharp edges and glass walls. The Harrington name had once been synonymous with innovation, but by the time Alex took over, the company was bleeding money. He rebuilt it from the ground up, stripping away sentiment and softness, determined to prove himself as more than a spoiled heir. His life was sleek, polished, calculated, but under the surface, he was a man who had long forgotten how to feel anything beyond success or failure. Their worlds should never have collided. But something about Lena's quiet confidence, her unpolished insight, stirred something in Alex that no amount of boardroom strategy ever had. Lena returned to Harrington Tower the next evening, telling herself it was just a one-time thing, a fluke, a lucky guess. But when she stepped into the office, Alex was already there, waiting, sleeves rolled up, eyes sharp, and for the first time, his expression softened slightly when he saw her. He gestured to the seat beside him, no formalities, no small talk, just work. What surprised Lena most was how easy it was to slip into that space. She had been on the outside for so long, always looking in through glass walls, but here, for a few hours each night, she felt like she belonged. They pored over slides, debated market angles, rewrote messaging, and every time Lena pointed something out, Alex listened, really listened. She was careful, professional, determined to keep her distance. But sometimes when she glanced up and saw the way he watched her, something fluttered low in her chest. They began falling into a rhythm. Days passed, then weeks. During the day, Lena continued her usual cleaning shifts, blending back into the background, unnoticed and unseen. But at night, when the office was quiet and the city lights spread like a sea of stars outside the glass windows, she became something else. A collaborator, a partner, maybe even a friend. She told herself it meant nothing. Alex Harrington was a billionaire, a man shaped by cold boardrooms and sharper negotiations, while she was just a girl trying to keep her family afloat. She was not naive. She knew better than to mistake proximity for intimacy. But sometimes, when he leaned a little closer, when his voice softened at the edges, when he offered her a crooked little smile that looked like it had not been used in years, she wondered if he was feeling it too. One night, after a particularly long session, Alex leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. "You know," he murmured, "I have not slept properly in months." Lena smiled softly. "Maybe you should try." He gave a quiet laugh. "Maybe I should." His eyes met hers, something unspoken flickering between them. "Why do you come back here, Lena?" he asked quietly. She hesitated. "Because you asked." His brow lifted slightly. "That is not the only reason." She swallowed hard. "Because I want to help. Because for the first time in years, I feel like I am doing something that matters." Neither of them spoke for a long moment. Then Alex pushed back from the desk. "Come with me." Lena blinked. "Where?" "Just come." He led her through the office, past the sleek hallways, and into a private lounge she had never seen before. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city, the skyline glittering like 1,000 silent promises. Alex poured 2 glasses of wine, handed one to her. Lena hesitated, then took it, fingers brushing briefly. For a moment, they stood in silence, watching the city. "Do you ever wonder," he said softly, "if you are missing something important?" Lena turned to look at him. "What do you mean?" Alex's jaw tightened slightly. "I built this, all of it, but some days it feels like none of it is real." He exhaled, glancing at her. "You remind me that there is more." Lena's breath caught in her throat. Alex reached out, his fingers brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. His touch was light, hesitant, like a man unused to gentleness. "I should not," he murmured. "Should not what?" Lena whispered. "This." He stepped back, shaking his head. "You are the only honest thing in my life right now. I cannot risk breaking that." Lena's heart pounded so loudly, she wondered if he could hear it. She set her glass down carefully. "I am not asking for anything." "I know," he said softly. "That is why it is so hard." Over the next week, the tension between them grew, thick and unspoken, filling the air like a storm waiting to break. They worked side by side, their hands brushing occasionally, their eyes meeting across the table, their conversations dipping into moments of vulnerability neither expected. Lena found herself sharing small pieces of her life, the kind of things she never told anyone, while Alex began letting his guard down, revealing the cracks behind the polished facade. She learned about his past, the betrayal that shaped his hunger for success, the walls he built to keep everyone out. He learned about her sacrifices, her fears, the quiet strength she carried alone. One night, as they finished reviewing a final draft, Alex reached for her hand, stopping just short of touching. "I do not know how to do this," he admitted quietly. Lena looked up at him, her voice barely a whisper. "Neither do I." For a heartbeat, the space between them felt charged, fragile, on the edge of something neither dared name. But then Alex pulled back, shaking his head. "I need to figure this out first. I need to be sure I am not just—" Reaching for the nearest light, Lena's chest ached, but she nodded. She understood. She always understood. The launch came and went, and it was a massive success. Alex's team celebrated with champagne and headlines, the company's value soaring overnight. Lena stayed on the sidelines, watching quietly, knowing she had played a small part but never stepping into the spotlight. She returned to her regular shifts, slipping back into the role she knew best, invisible. But Alex did not forget. Late one night, he found her in the lounge, alone with a sketch pad she had pulled from her bag. She flushed, quickly trying to tuck it away, but he stopped her gently. "Show me." Lena hesitated, then handed it over. He flipped through the pages, eyes softening as he studied the delicate lines, the quiet beauty she had captured. "You should not be cleaning floors," he murmured. "You should be doing this." She smiled faintly. "Life does not always let us choose." Alex closed the sketchpad, his gaze steady. "Maybe it should." That was the night everything changed. The night air was cool when Lena stepped out onto the balcony, wrapping her arms around herself as she looked over the glittering skyline. She had told herself again and again that she was fine, that she was happy to have played even a small role in the company's success. But deep down, she felt the ache of something unfinished, something unsaid. Behind her, the glass door slid open softly. Alex stepped out, his figure silhouetted against the soft glow of the penthouse lights. "I thought you had left," he said quietly. Lena smiled faintly without turning. "I almost did." He moved to stand beside her, his shoulder brushing hers just slightly. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Alex let out a breath, running a hand through his hair. "I have been thinking a lot," he murmured. "About what?" Lena asked softly. "About what happens next," he said. "About what I want. About what I have been too afraid to admit." Lena's heart pounded in her chest, but she stayed still, waiting. "I never let anyone in," Alex said, his voice raw. "Not really. Not since my father died. I told myself I did not need anyone, that needing someone was weakness. But you slipped past every wall I built. I do not know how you did it." Lena turned slowly to face him. "I did not do anything," she whispered. "I just saw you." Alex's eyes met hers, intense and vulnerable. "And I saw you," he said softly. "I saw a woman who gave up everything for her family, who worked until her hands were raw, who still showed up with a spark of brilliance no one had the sense to notice. You are not just the cleaning lady, Lena. You are—" He trailed off, stepping closer, lifting a hand but hesitating just before touching her face. "I have been holding back because I thought I needed to sort myself out first," he murmured, "because I thought maybe I was just drawn to the light you bring into the room. But the truth is, I am drawn to you, Lena. Not as a symbol, not as an idea, just you." Lena felt her breath catch, her heart thudding so loudly she wondered if he could hear it. Alex's thumb brushed lightly along her jawline, his touch feather-soft, as if he was afraid she might vanish. "Tell me to stop," he murmured. "If this is too much, tell me now." But Lena could not speak, could not do anything but shake her head, her eyes shining with unshed tears. He kissed her then, slow and reverent, like a man tasting something he had been starving for but never dared reach. His arms wrapped around her carefully, holding her close without crushing, as if he understood that she was breakable and precious all at once. Lena clung to him, feeling the heat of his body, the steady beat of his heart, and for the first time in years, she let herself lean into someone else, let herself be held without apology. When they finally pulled apart, Alex rested his forehead against hers, his breath warm and shaky. "I do not know what this looks like," he admitted softly. "I do not know how to fit you into my world, but I know that I do not want to imagine it without you." Lena smiled, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Maybe we stop worrying about what it is supposed to look like," she whispered. "Maybe we just let it be what it is." In the days that followed, everything changed, and yet nothing changed. They still worked late into the night, still shared quiet conversations and stolen smiles. But now there was a softness between them, a warmth that had not been there before. Alex began inviting her to more meetings, not as a cleaner, not even as a silent advisor, but as someone whose opinion mattered. He gave her space to share ideas, to shine, to reclaim the part of herself she had long buried. But not everyone was pleased. Alex's board began to push back, questioning his sudden shift in priorities, his increasing attachment to a woman who, in their eyes, did not belong. Investors whispered about distractions, about risks, about the dangers of blurring personal and professional lines. And then came the final blow, a proposed merger that required Alex to present a stable, traditional front, including, they strongly implied, a match with someone of his own social standing. The news hit Lena like a punch to the stomach. She had always known, deep down, that she did not belong in his world, but hearing it spelled out so coldly, so bluntly, shattered something inside her. She began pulling back, retreating into herself, giving Alex polite smiles and careful answers, no longer letting her guard drop. Alex noticed immediately. One evening, he cornered her gently in the lounge, his brow furrowed. "What is going on, Lena? You are pulling away from me." She shook her head, forcing a smile. "I am just tired." "That is not it," Alex pressed. "Talk to me, please." Lena hesitated, then sighed softly. "You have a choice to make, Alex, and it is not just about me. It is about everything you have built. Everything you have fought for. You do not need me complicating things." Alex's eyes darkened. "Do not say that. You are not a complication. You are—" He trailed off, his fists clenching at his sides. "You are the only thing in my life that makes sense." Lena stepped back, shaking her head, her throat tight. "I cannot be the reason you lose everything, Alex. I will not." Alex reached for her hand, his grip warm and desperate. "I have already decided, Lena. I am walking away from the merger. I am walking away from every deal that asks me to sacrifice the only thing that has made me feel human in years." Lena's eyes widened, her heart pounding. "You cannot," she whispered. "You have worked too hard for this." Alex smiled faintly, his eyes soft. "I worked hard to build a life I thought I wanted, but what is the point if it does not have you in it?" For the first time, Lena let herself believe. The next morning, the news hit the media like wildfire. Alex Harrington, the ruthless billionaire CEO, had pulled out of a major merger, sending shockwaves through the business world. Headlines speculated wildly, investors scrambled, and board members seethed, but none of that mattered to Alex. He sat quietly in his office, staring out at the city, a cup of untouched coffee on his desk, and waited. Lena stood outside the building, her heart hammering in her chest. She had not planned to come here. She had told herself to stay away, to give him space to fix what she feared she had broken. But in the end, she could not. She could not leave things unfinished, could not let him carry the weight of his decision alone. When she entered his office, Alex stood immediately, his eyes locking onto hers with such intensity It nearly knocked the breath from her lungs. "You came," he said softly. Lena gave a small, shaky smile. "You left everything for me," she whispered. "I could not let you stand here alone." Alex crossed the room in 2 strides, gathering her into his arms with a desperation that spoke of sleepless nights and quiet longing. "I do not regret it," he murmured into her hair. "Not for a second." "I do," she whispered, "only because you should not have had to choose." He pulled back slightly, his hands cradling her face. "I did not have to, Lena. I wanted to." For a long moment, they just stood there, holding on to each other, grounding themselves against the chaos outside the glass walls. Later that night, they found themselves in the quiet sanctuary of his penthouse. Lena sat, curled, on the couch, one of Alex's shirts draped over her slender frame, her hair falling in loose waves around her face. Alex sat nearby, watching her with an expression so soft it made her heart ache. "You really gave it all up," she said quietly, tracing the rim of her tea mug with her finger. "You walked away from everything you built." Alex reached over, his hand covering hers. "Not everything," he murmured. "I still have you." Lena swallowed hard, blinking back tears. "I am scared, Alex. I do not know how to be the woman standing next to you." He smiled faintly, his thumb brushing gently over her knuckles. "You do not have to be anyone but yourself." "That is the woman I fell for." Their gazes held, charged with unspoken words and quiet promises. Lena reached out, her fingers lightly tracing the edge of his jaw, the softness of the moment filling the room like a delicate thread, weaving them closer together. When Alex leaned in, it was not rushed or desperate. It was slow, intentional, the kind of kiss that spoke of trust and surrender. Lena melted into him, her heart swelling with a mixture of fear and hope. That night, they lay tangled in each other's arms, the weight of past mistakes and sacrifices slipping away with every whispered confession, every lingering touch. Lena rested her head against Alex's chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath her cheek. "Do you think we can really make this work?" she murmured sleepily. Alex pressed a soft kiss to her forehead. "I know we can," he whispered, "because for the first time in my life, I am not building an empire. I am building a future with you." They fell asleep like that, wrapped in each other, 2 souls battered by the world but choosing, against all odds, to hold on. In the weeks that followed, things were not always easy. The press hounded Alex, speculating on his every move. The board threatened to remove him, investors demanded answers, and old allies turned cold. But Alex stood firm, and Lena stood beside him, their quiet partnership slowly transforming into something unshakable. She began to carve out her own space, stepping into roles she never imagined she would have the chance to hold. She started advising on creative projects, offering insights, even designing campaigns that carried the subtle brilliance Alex had first seen in her. She stopped being the girl who blended into the background and became the woman who stood in the light. And Alex, for his part, began to let go of his relentless need for control. He learned to trust, to delegate, to rest. He learned to laugh again, to soften, to let himself be vulnerable without fearing it made him weak. Their love was not perfect. They fought sometimes, sharp words exchanged in moments of exhaustion or fear. But they always came back to each other, always chose to stay. And in a world that valued polished surfaces and curated perfection, that choice was its own kind of rebellion. On the 6-month anniversary of the night Lena first walked into his office with nothing but a mop and a brilliant idea, Alex took her back to that same room. It was empty now, the late hour casting the space in quiet shadows. He held her hand, pulling her close. "You saved me, Lena," he said softly. "Not just the company. Me." She smiled, tears shining in her eyes. You saved me too, Alex. You reminded me that I am more than the life I was stuck in. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. Lena gasped softly as he opened it, revealing a simple, elegant ring. I am not asking for a perfect future, Alex said, his voice trembling slightly. I am asking for one we build together. Will you? Lena's breath hitched, her heart swelling so full she thought it might burst. Yes, she whispered. Yes. The following days were a blur of quiet celebrations and whispered promises. Lena and Alex moved carefully, trying to protect the fragile foundation they had built, but the world outside their sanctuary was relentless. News spread quickly about their engagement, speculation buzzing through the business world and social media alike. At first, Lena tried to ignore it, focusing on her work and the quiet moments she shared with Alex. But soon, the pressure began to seep into their lives in ways neither of them could control. Alex's board of directors, already wary of his recent decisions, grew restless. Investors who had tolerated his eccentricities before now began raising questions. The narrative they pushed was harsh. Alex had become distracted, soft, a man who had let personal feelings cloud his judgment. Headlines framed Lena as an outsider, a former cleaning lady who had bewitched a billionaire into throwing away his empire. It did not matter that Lena was brilliant, that she had saved the company from a failing project, that she was, by every measure, worthy. In the eyes of the world, she was a risk. The tension between Alex and his team escalated quickly. Meetings grew heated, board votes loomed. Lena watched him try to hold everything together, saw the stress in his eyes, the way his hands trembled slightly when he thought no one was looking. And then, one evening, she heard the conversation she had feared most. She had gone to the office late to surprise him, carrying his favorite dinner and a small smile on her lips. But as she stepped into the hallway outside the conference room, she heard raised voices. You need to choose, Alex, one of the board members snapped. You can play house with her, or you can keep this company afloat. But you cannot have both. Lena froze, her heart pounding painfully in her chest. She stood there, listening as the weight of Alex's world crashed down around them. She heard his calm, controlled voice, heard him push back, defend her, refuse to back down. But she also heard the exhaustion, the strain, the desperate edge he was trying to hide. That night, Lena made a decision. When Alex came home, she was waiting, her face pale but determined. We need to talk, she said quietly. He froze, eyes flicking over her face, immediately sensing the shift in her. Lena, no, do not say it. She shook her head, blinking fast. You are losing everything, Alex. I will not stand here and let you burn your entire life down for me. He crossed the room in 2 long strides, gripping her shoulders tightly. I am not losing anything. You are my life now. She let out a soft, broken laugh. And what kind of life is it, Alex? One where you are fighting every day, where you cannot sleep, where you have to choose between love and survival. Alex's jaw clenched, his eyes dark and pained. I will not let you walk away. Tears spilled down Lena's cheeks. I am not walking away because I do not love you. I am walking away because I do. For a long, agonizing moment, neither of them moved. Then Alex's grip loosened, his shoulders sagging as if the fight had finally drained out of him. Lena pressed a trembling kiss to his cheek. When you are ready, when you have found your balance again, come find me. But not like this. Not when you are breaking yourself in half just to hold on to me. And then she left, her heart shattering with every step she took. Days passed. Weeks. Lena returned to her old apartment, to her old life, trying to piece herself back together. She threw herself into her art, into small projects, into helping her family. She watched the headlines from a distance, her chest tightening every time Alex's name appeared. She missed him with a fierceness that stole her breath at night, but she held firm. She had made her choice, and she had to trust that he would make his. Alex, meanwhile, felt the absence of her like a raw wound. He worked tirelessly, fighting to stabilize the company, to rebuild investor trust, to remind the world who he was. But every night, when he returned to the penthouse, the silence was unbearable. Her laughter no longer filled the rooms. Her sketches no longer dotted his shelves. Her warmth no longer curled beside him in the quiet hours before dawn. One night, after a particularly brutal board meeting, Alex sat alone in his office, staring at a small framed drawing Lena had once left on his desk. It was a simple sketch. 2 hands, one reaching, one waiting. He stared at it for a long time, something inside him slowly, painfully cracking open. The next morning, Alex called an emergency board meeting. When everyone was seated, he stood at the head of the table, calm and unshakable. "I have made my decision," he said clearly. "If staying in this role means cutting off the parts of my life that matter most, then I no longer want this role." The room erupted. Voices shouted, demands flew, but Alex remained steady. "I am stepping down," he said simply, and then he walked out, leaving behind the empire he had built to chase the only thing that had ever made him feel alive. It took him 3 days to find her. He went to her apartment, but she was not there. He checked the small art studio she had rented, but the lights were off. Finally, he remembered something she had once mentioned in passing, a quiet spot by the river where she went to think. And there she was. She sat on a bench, wrapped in a simple coat, her sketchbook balanced on her knees, her hair lifted gently in the breeze, and for a moment, Alex just stood there, drinking in the sight of her, feeling his heart race in a way it had not in weeks. When she finally noticed him, her eyes widened, her mouth opening slightly in surprise. "Alex," she breathed, standing slowly. "What are you—" He crossed the distance between them in 2 long strides, gathering her into his arms, burying his face in her hair. "I am here," he whispered. "I am done choosing between you and the world. I am choosing you." Lena clung to him, tears slipping down her cheeks. "You gave it all up," she whispered. Alex smiled faintly, pulling back just enough to cup her face in his hands. "I gave up everything that never mattered. You are the only thing that does." The sun was beginning to set, casting soft gold and pink light across the river as Alex and Lena sat quietly together on the bench. Her head rested on his shoulder, his arm wrapped securely around her, and for the first time in what felt like forever, neither of them spoke about work, responsibility, or sacrifice. They simply existed together, breathing in the stillness they had both fought so hard to find. Lena lifted her face slightly, her eyes glistening. "You really walked away from everything," she whispered. Alex's lips curved into a gentle smile. "I did not walk away, Lena. I finally walked towards something that matters." She let out a shaky breath, pressing her forehead to his chest. "I was so scared, Alex. I thought you would resent me. I thought you would wake up one day and regret everything you gave up for me." He tipped her chin up softly, his gaze steady and tender. "I regret every day I spent pretending success was enough. You reminded me what it feels like to care, to feel, to want something more than numbers on a screen." His fingers brushed her hair back gently. "You saved me from myself, Lena. You taught me that love is not something you can schedule or strategize. It is something you choose every day, even when it is hard, especially when it is hard." Lena's throat tightened as she whispered, "I love you, Alex, not because you are a billionaire or because you saved me from my old life. I love you because when everything else fell apart, you were still the man who believed in me, who saw me when I felt invisible. Alex smiled, his eyes softening in a way that melted every last piece of fear inside her. And I love you, Lena, because you are the only person who has ever seen past the walls I built. You are the only person who has ever made me want to be a better man, not for the world, but for myself. For you. They sat like that for a long time, wrapped in the quiet power of a love they had earned through sacrifice, pain, and healing. Around them, the world continued to spin, the city lights beginning to glow in the distance, but for once, they did not feel the need to race ahead or catch up. They had already won the only battle that mattered. In the months that followed, Alex and Lena carved out a new kind of life together. It was not perfect or flashy, not built on headlines or fortune. It was a life of small, intentional choices. Morning coffee shared on the balcony, evenings spent working side by side on Lena's creative projects, quiet walks through the city where no one recognized them, and they could simply be Alex and Lena, not CEO and former maid, not public spectacle and tabloid rumor. Just two people who'd chosen each other again and again. Lena began to believe something she had never allowed herself to before, that she deserved love not because she was flawless, not because she had proven her worth, but because real love does not ask for perfection. It asks for presence, patience, and the willingness to stay. And Alex learned to let go of the relentless chase for more. He learned that true power was not in domination or control, but in vulnerability, in the courage to open his heart and let someone in. Together, they built a future shaped not by wealth or legacy, but by quiet moments, by shared dreams, by the profound everyday miracle of holding on to each other even when the world tried to pull them apart. Because in the end, the most powerful love stories are not about perfection. They are about two people who choose, despite everything, to stand together. And Alex and Lena, against all odds, had found that kind of love.